so much for taking your time and doing this interview.
Thanks for having me, Ariel.
Yeah, of course. So, could you start by introducing yourself and telling us some things about you?
Sure. My name is Debbie Dadey, and I'm an author and co-author of 182 books. My first book was Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots, and I have a book coming out next month. It's called Ghost Dragons Don't Cook Pizza graphic novel.
Oh, yeah, I've read most of your books.
Oh, wow. You are a
Yeah.
big reader.
Yeah. Wow, you have 182?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's a lot. Are they all Bailey School kids or are some of them from the series?
No, there are some from different series. Bailey School Kids is the biggest amount. There it was 52, 51 numbered, oh, I forgot, 51 number books, I think. Super specials, holiday specials, jokes books, and then there were 3 spin-off series from the Bailey School Kids books, the Bailey City Monsters, the Bailey School Kids Junior Chapter books, and the Bailey School Kids graphic novels. But I also had some other series, like my newest one is actually, it's Mini Mermaid Tales, and before that I had a Mermaid Tales series that was a little bit harder, but I've also had some other series, but these are my 2 out of the newest series.
Yeah. Actually, the thing is, my name, Ariel, it's from, if you haven't noticed yet, it's from the movie Under the Sea.
I
The
wondered about
I mean,
that.
sorry, The Little Mermaid. And so I haven't actually but the thing is everyone expects me to be into mermaids, but I am not. But I will definitely read your book though.
Oh, well,
It's
thank you.
interesting. And I've read some of your books and I know you're very good at writing.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, one of the Bailey School Kids books is about a mermaid. Mermaids don't run track.
Oh yeah.
So I had a lot of fun writing that. And so when Simon and Schuster asked me to write a mermaid series, I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. And what I like most about it is I get to learn about different ocean creatures and maybe put a little facts
Yeah.
about that. Like, I didn't know that dolphins had 2 stomachs. Do you know that?
Dolphins have 2 stomachs.
Dolphins
I
have
thought
2
that was
stomachs.
cows.
So I thought that was, yeah. Actually, I found out there's a lot of different animals that do. I didn't know that, but I do a little research on each creature that I write about in the story. So it's kind of fun to learn about, different animals. And even when I was writing the Bailey School Kids books, I learned about like different monsters, like werewolves. I know how to become a werewolf. In case you
Yeah.
didn't know. I would learn the legends and the,
Frankenstein's don't plant petunias. All
yeah.
those, the abominable snowman doesn't roast
Did you know that
marshmallows.
Frankenstein Doesn't Plant Petunias is out now as a graphic novel?
Yeah, a lot of my friends have been rereading them because of the graphic novels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Um, I like graphic novels, but I find the actual books a lot more interesting because sometimes I can't even tell what the character is doing during the graphic novel. And like in the book, it says like the character and the character turn. I mean, in my opinion, the character could be twirling or anything. It honestly doesn't even say. Um, so what inspired you to become a writer?
Well, I love to read, so that was one of the reasons. But I was also an elementary school teacher before I became a school librarian, before I became a full-time writer. And so one of my favorite part of the day was reading aloud to kids. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool, to write a book that maybe somebody else would like to read? So that was kind of a dream of mine.
Yeah. So what inspired you to write? Well, there are a lot of books in your Bailey School Kids. And so today I'm going to talk about, I think we're going to do my personal favorite almost. Um, Even though I haven't read all of them, um, it's Trolls Don't Ride Roller Coasters.
Oh, yes.
That was just really funny.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the chicken. I wrote the Bailey School Kids with my friend Marsha Jones. And Marsha's much braver than I am. But she uh, is not the chicken that I am, because I am a chicken to ride a roller coaster. I was like Liza. I don't know, I'm like, do not like roller coasters at all. So we had fun with her being the one who was ready to ride it, and I was the one like, no, I'm scared.
Yeah. did you guys ride a roller coaster for like the entire experience, or? Well, I mean, did she?
um, pretty much everything else we did do. Like when we were writing about mummies, I went to the Shed Museum in Chicago, where they had a mummy exhibit, and it was really creepy.
Oh,
And I would do other things, like when I wrote Danger in the Deep Blue Sea about sharks, which is a mermaid tale book. I went down a slide into this big humongous slide into a pit that had sharks swimming around it, nurse sharks. But I did not ride a roller coaster because I am a
slid
chicken
down a
for
slide
roller
that goes to a
coasters.
pit of sharks,
I
but
don't
you
know
didn't
what it
ride a
is about
roller
roller
coaster.
coasters. They just creep me out. But we did learn about trolls and legends and myths, and that
Yeah.
to put them into the story.
Oh my gosh. You
Marcia
slid
had to
it
suffice
into a
with
pit.
the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, how'd you come up with the title of Trolls Don't Ride Roller Coasters?
Well, the very first Bailey School Kids book was Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots. And what we did, we were trying to figure out a name. We reread the story, and we came across the part in the chapter book where Liza said, Mrs. Jeepers can't be a vampire. Vampires don't wear polka dots. And I said, Marcia, I kind of like that. What if we name our story Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots? And so we were very lucky, it got published. And so 250,000 copies the first month it was out. And we're like, yeah, maybe we could write another story. And so we wondered, well, how could we people know it was about the same characters, because it wasn't a series when it first started out, and it was just going to be another book. And we thought, well, maybe we could make our titles kind of similar. So we had that pattern of vampires don't wear polka dots, werewolves don't go to summer camp. And so we kept that pattern up
Yeah,
throughout
blank
all
doesn't
of them.
do blank, blank doesn't do blank, blank
Yeah.
doesn't do blank.
And then when we wrote the easier series called the Bailey School Kids Junior chapter books, we had it switched it up just a little bit to have them do like reindeer do wear striped underwear. So it still had the same pattern, but it was a little more positive.
Reindeer wear striped underwear.
Yeah, that was one of the Bailey School Kids Junior chapter books. And the idea came from that. In Colorado, I went to like this nursery that had Christmas trees, and where you could buy a Christmas tree, and they had an actual reindeer in a pen, and it had a red and white striped blanket that kind of looked like underwear. So that's where the idea for that came from.
I mean, well, red and white stripes are the stripes of a candy cane, so
Yeah, very Christmassy, right?
I wouldn't want to eat those. So are there any interesting or memorable experiences that happened in your life that you like, sort of like, just slipped into the book?
Well, the idea for the very first book that I wrote with my friend Marcia Jones was from a very bad day, because I was a teacher in the McKenna Library, and Marcia was a teacher as well. And one day, when we had started writing stories together, I went over to her classroom, and she met me at the door of her classroom, and she said, "These kids are driving me crazy. I can't take it anymore." She said, "I think I'd have to be some kind of monster teacher and have horns and steamroll at me, or shoot up 15 feet tall and have claws and fangs, and then maybe all the kids would pay attention to me." And when she said that, I went, "Hey, Marcia, I kind of like that idea." And that became the idea for our very first story, Vampires
Oh,
Don't
that's so
Wear
funny. I think people would definitely pay attention to that.
Dots. So see, bad days can actually turn into something important.
So, can you tell us about your process of writing the book?
Well, first of all, I come up with an idea, and sometimes it's an idea that maybe an editor wants me to write about, or sometimes it's just something I really, really want to write about. I read this idea for this book, my latest picture book, Never Give Up. I had wrote this article. I read this article about this lady who spent 40 years on this idea that people told her, this is never going to work. You should give up.
Let me guess, it worked?
And after a long, long time, almost 40 years, it
40?
did work. And guess what? Have you ever heard of the COVID vaccine?
Yeah.
It
Did
was
you
her
come up with it?
it was her technology that made it happen. She worked for all those years on mRNA technology, and so she was like, what? If she had given up, then we wouldn't have that vaccine to help people. So
Thank goodness for
it came
that.
from just reading a story. So you can get ideas from, reading an article like I did to write that book, or you can get ideas from like having a bad day, or you can get ideas from, actually I read a magazine article about this man who spent his whole life searching for Bigfoot. I'm like, that's really weird, but I kind of interesting. So that book turned into the book Bigfoot Doesn't Square Dance.
So can you tell us about your process of writing the book now?
Oh, yep. I come up with an idea, and then I'll kind of like brainstorm, like, okay, what could happen first, what can happen next, what can happen last. And I also brainstorm about the characters that are going to be in the story. What are they going to be like? And I write a little paragraph about what they're like, a character sketch it's called. And then sometimes I even get a picture. I look on photographs online, and or in magazines or whatever, and I see if I can find a picture of what I think my character might look like, and I put them in beside the little description, so I can think, well, that's my character and that's what they look like, and what do they act like, and what do they hate, what do they love, what foods even that they like, what do they have hanging on their bedroom wall, who's their best friend, that sort of thing. And I write,
Yeah, like, do they have
all that out.
siblings? Are they an only child?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They hate asparagus, or do they love popsicles or whatever, so they like cherry popsicles or doodle gum shapes or whatever. So I just do that so that I know a little bit about the characters, because I feel like if I don't know the characters, probably the reader's not going to know the character very well.
Yeah.
So I learn about the character, and learn about the place where they're going to live. I draw a map of the world, like who lives on what street, and that helps me to look, like when I'm writing the story, if I have something happen and they go from one place to the other, I can look at the map to see, okay, well, they're going to go down Main Street or whatever. So I can use that as a reference. And then I take all that plan or that outline of what's going to happen in my story, what's going to happen first, next, and last, and I just start writing.
Yeah.
And then of course
The publishing process.
I wish it was that fast, because it's not that fast, because I write it, but then I have to change it a lot of times,
Revising.
a lot of times. I think one book, Santa Claus Doesn't Mop Floors, is one of the few books that I didn't have to hardly change anything on with my friend Marcia. So
Santa Claus does mop floors.
yes, but this one book, Ghosts Don't Eat Potato Chips, the chapter book of this, that one took 2 years to rewrite. We changed it so many different times. I think like 9 different times totally from beginning to end. And that was the longest Bailey School Kids book to write. Ghost Don't Eat Potato Chips. But the longest book longest I ever worked on a book so far is a book called Cherokee Sisters. I worked on that book for 8 years. And part of the reason was I did a lot of research, learning about the time period, and what the life was like then, but I did change it a whole bunch of times, rewrote it a whole lot.
Oh my, 8 years.
Yes.
8 years, 2 years, that's 10 years already.
So sometimes it takes long, sometimes it doesn't take as long, sometimes it takes a long time. Just depends on the story.
Yeah. How long did it take to write?
Well, most of the Bailey School Kids books took about a month, because we didn't have a lot of choice. They would give us like a deadline of when they needed the book. So sometimes we were writing like 12 books a year. So we would write a Bailey School Kids book, and then we'd write a different series. Like we had a Triplet Trouble series, and we had a Barkley School for Dogs series. And so we had different series that we would write as well, that we were writing as well during the same time we were writing the Bailey School Kids chapter books. So we were pretty busy. Plus I was writing, not only writing, but I was also up until the 6th Bailey School Kids came out, I was also a school librarian
Hmm.
and taking care of my kids and my family.
Oh yeah, well that's a lot of stuff to do. And they gave you a deadline. And they gave you a
Anyway.
deadline, which is a lot.
Yeah, it was fun, and because we were doing it together, kind of like a team, so that helped a lot. Especially since we were both new writers and we didn't really know what we were doing so much. We were kind of learning, as we went. So it was fun.
Yeah. So, what message or theme do you hope readers learn from the Bailey School Kids series?
Well, I noticed one thing about almost all my books really is that they're about friendship and
Yeah,
working
that is
together.
good thing.
So I think that's if there is a message with the Bailey School Kids book, I think that's it. Getting along with people and working together when you have a problem, solving that. Even if your problem is that your teacher is a vampire or your camp counselor is a werewolf, working together as a team to try to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Think that's probably, if there is a message for the Bailey School Kids, because I wrote them for fun, for kids to
Mhm,
enjoy,
yeah.
not necessarily with a message, but if there is a message, I think it is the teamwork and the working together and being friends, and maybe understanding that people are different, and if somebody's grouchy one day, cutting them a little slack and still being their friend.
Yeah, yeah. So if you could give one piece of advice to kids who want to become authors, or just authors in general, what would it be?
Oh, definitely to read a lot of new books, because the books that I read when I was a kid are not the same kind of books that publishers are publishing now.
Yeah.
So it's good to read books that are being published now, so you understand, a writer will know what is current, what people like to read now, and not only read a lot, but also to write a lot. Because I meet people who say, "Oh, I want to be a writer," and I say, "Oh, well, do you write much?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, if you want to be a writer, you kind of have to write. It's part of the process there.
Yeah, yeah. So if you could travel back in time and give one piece of advice to yourself when you were in your writing process, what would it be?
Oh,
And
when I
for
was
any
first
book.
starting writing, oh, that's a tough one. I think not to be so that it'll all work out. That don't be so stressed when you don't, if you get that rejection from an editor, it's not the end of the world. It's just one editor's opinion. And just because one editor says they don't like your story doesn't mean somebody else might not like your story. Actually, the Bailey School Kids books were rejected twice before Scholastic bought them and turned it into a
Well,
series.
that's only two people who don't like
So
it.
yes, but if I had quit with that one person and I said, well, what's the use? I'm just gonna quit. Then there never would have been a big,
I don't think we would be having this interview right now.
right, exactly. So I think not giving up, not being discouraged. And I think one thing that helped me not to give up was having a co-author who, if she wasn't going to give up, then I guess I wasn't going to give up. But if I hadn't had her when I first started writing, who knows, I might have given up, because it is kind of discouraging when you get a rejection from a publisher that says, no, we don't want to write your story. We don't want it to be made into a book, and you just kind of want to give up. So try not to be so discouraged, I think would be my advice.
Yeah. So I mean, good for you that you got like the book into Scholastic, because Scholastic is like this huge company and all that. Um, so yeah, what do you enjoy doing for fun other than reading, of course, and writing? Because like you said earlier, you have to enjoy what you do in order to do it
I
good.
do love to read a lot. I read all every chance I can get. But now I told you I was living in temporary housing is because I'm building a house to be closer to my grandchildren. So I have grandchildren now and I get to play with them. So that's exciting.
Yay.
And I play with my dogs too. And my husband is retired, so hopefully we can do fun things together too.
Yeah. Um, so are you planning to write more books other than the series you told me about?
I have
Mentors?
a series right now with an editor, a new series right now with an editor. Fingers crossed, we'll see if I get to write that or not. And I'm also working on old book for older kids about the Wild West.
Ooh, the Wild
Working on
West.
it for quite a while, actually. So
Yeah, so what is it
I'm
about?
rewriting and rewriting.
What is it about?
Oh, it's about a girl named Daphne and her adventures in the Wild West.
Daphne, isn't that sounds familiar? Isn't that from Scooby-Doo or something?
Oh, there was a Daphne in Scooby-Doo. You're right.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this interview. So I will definitely read your books, and the way you described the Mermaid Tales ones, that I really want to read it right now.
Oh, thank you. Even
Um,
though you don't like mermaids, I'm impressed. Thank you.
well, like I said earlier, I know you're good at writing, and if
Uh,
you're good at writing, your books have to be good.
oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Ariel.